Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
What we are going to do is if you're here and you want to say something, raise your hand and we'll have some time here to do that. And we'll have a microphone for the group. So we have some folks who bring you a microphone so that checking that chat function, and I know a number of people are hoping to be able to provide us with some updates from their perspectives around the various different sectors of New Hampshire and our economy and our way of life here that largely revolves around water. So we are, I think, going to get started here in just a couple minutes. I'm going to just give one more minute for people to kind of get online and to, if they're going through the gauntlet of security here, then we'll let them get through that. Otherwise, just hang on for about 60 seconds, and we'll get rolling with all of our updates. So we're just going to go quiet for just a couple minutes, and then we'll get ready. All right, thanks everybody. Are you guys controlling this meeting? Do you guys have the ability to do meetings and stuff? Okay. All right, thanks. And I guess for those of you also here, you should just recognize that when you came in, that's the bathrooms are along the sides there or around the other side. You need restrooms. If there was an emergency, you can exit either through exit door here or back out through the way you came, and you would assemble out into the parking lot if there was some sort of emergency. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get rolling. Thank you all again for being here for the Drought Management Team meeting. My name is Ted Deers, and I'm the Assistant Water Division Director here at the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And I am honored to serve as our drought point of contact for our agency. And so we've been tracking what's been going on with this drought now for a couple of months, and we've been having internal meetings. And many of you have probably seen our drought updates that come out. Recognizing some staff that are important to all of that here at DES, Stacy Herbold in our drinking water program, Shane Schicky in our groundwater or our geological survey, John Pasquale up in our MTBE bureau, and our in-stream flow watershed staff, lots of other DES folks who feed into this process. So that is really important for us as we continue on as an agency to make sure that we're coordinated internally, given that so many of our programs are dependent upon having ample water in the state. So given that we have starting to have more and more of our internal meetings discussing where we were and doing these drought updates as they became more and more sort of severe in what we were recommending, we figured it would probably be good to get everybody back together again and talk through some of the other effects that we're seeing around the state. We get asked a lot because of the work that we've been doing on the drought. We get asked about other sectors and hesitant to reply because we think that's better for you. So again, we're going to get rolling here and talk a little bit about the current situation and the weather and how this fits in with this year's climatological situation. We have our state climatologist, Mary Stanford. So come on, Mary, and talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Great. Perfect. All right, so this is just a little bit of a summary of kind of how we got to where we are. And so if we go back to June, you'll see that the abnormal dry area, which is kind of the pre-drought stage, actually developed pretty much over the week or the last week of June. So throughout the month of June, most of the state was under no drought conditions, and then the abnormally dry stage developed in that last month, and there was just a sliver of moderate drought that had developed from the south. So regionally, I don't have a regional map up here, but regionally the drought kind of started in southeastern New England and moved north and west from the coast over the summer. And so over the course of the month of July is when conditions really started to deteriorate. And so within a couple of weeks, we saw the spread or intensification into the first category of drought, which is moderate drought. In early July from sort of the southeastern part of New Hampshire on west and north through early July, while the original moderate drought part intensified in southeastern New Hampshire to a severe drought. And then things kind of stabilized during the middle of the month, and then after all the heat that we had the last couple of weeks of July, we saw more intensification throughout the state. And so just for reference, climatologists would consider this a rapid onset drought conditions because it was only a few weeks we went from abnormal drought to the severe and moderate drought phases. You may have heard this referred to as flash flood as well. And just to look at how precipitation has accumulated over the past 2 months. So we started June 1st on the left, and then through today on the right side for 5 representative stations here across New Hampshire. And you can see that the pattern is pretty much the same statewide. This time of year, so the month of June and July, we would average about statewide about 4 inches of rain, or give or take, depending on where we are locally. And we've been anywhere between 50 to 75% of what that average value is across these past few months. And if you look at it, there's been actually about the same amount of precipitation or rain in June as there was in July, but it's fell differently. So in June, we had a lot of the rain kind of happen earlier in the month, and then we had a fairly dry period, which is when we saw the onset of the abnormally dry drought category. And then in July, we see a lot of kind of more frontal or convective precipitation, so you get little bits here and there, rather than kind of a larger rainy pattern that we tend to see in the cooler months. And so kind of keep this precipitation pattern in mind, and then we combine that with the temperature. And so one of the reasons why drought conditions were kind of slow to develop during June and didn't intensify as much during the month, or as much during the month of June, is because June was actually cooler. We were about anywhere from normal to a degree Fahrenheit below normal through the month of June. Whereas in July, particularly in the southeastern part of the state, we've been anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit above normal through the month of July, and July is just hotter anyway. And so what we've seen happen is this increase in the evaporative demand from the atmosphere and plants during the month of July that has actually exceeded the anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of precipitation we received statewide, which has allowed that drought to intensify rapidly over the 4 months or the 4 weeks of the month of July through to now. And so what that's done is led to extremely dry soils. If you are a gardener and have dug around in your garden, you'll notice that the top layer is pretty much dust at this point. And so over 50% of the state right now has topsoils that are classified as very dry by the CDC. And of course, we're starting to see significant impacts on vegetation across the state. And so we look ahead, unfortunately, for the next month, it's more than likely that we're going to have kind of the same conditions going forward. So over the next few days, we have some precipitation forecasted statewide, but again, those are going to be the pop-up showers. So we need a real soaker, and that doesn't look like we're going to get that over the next week. And then if we look into sort of the 2 week out, so by the middle to end of August, second or third week of August, we're going to expect, again, pop-up showers here and there, or like what we saw in July, but these are below normal temperatures. So while we're going to get some rain, that's not going to be enough to meet the atmospheric demand for evaporation. We also have soil or precipitation deficits anywhere from 6 to 9 inches across the state, so we have a lot to make up for. And then going through the end of the month, precipitation looks to drop down below normal again, so we can probably expect to see some more dry periods combined with high heat leads to, again, more rapid demand and greater drying pattern. And so for basically the rest of summer, probably into September, we can expect to see these conditions at least persist. And I know there's some talk in southern New England right now with the drought monitor that they might be expanding or intensifying the drought categories further south. And this whole event is kind of moving from south to north, so you could see some intensification. But of course, fortunately, by the time fall comes, temperatures cool, we tend to get a little bit more rain, we have more of the storm events as opposed to just the convective, so hopefully by fall things will improve, and the drought outlook for fall does indicate probable improvement very fast. So that's where we are now. And
you want to take some questions?
Yeah, if you want to do questions. Sure.
If you go back to the slides, so you're saying the Seacoast, New Hampshire, we're in a moderate drought. We're not going to get second cut on our hay, but I mean, we get down to that dark color. I mean, is it catastrophic if we roll over at that point? I mean, I would consider the Seacoast and New Hampshire our farm fields in that category now.
Well, the seacoast is actually in the severe drought, and if conditions persist like this, I would expect that the extreme drought category will hit that extreme drought category before the growing summer, which
I don't think we have frozen.
yeah. I mean, I know from my own experience that things are really bad. And I will say on top of that, I know there's some differences between what the surface impacts are compared to the groundwater, and I know we're going to talk more about groundwater later.
Did we get any questions online in the chat? Okay, great. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you very much. I think that gives us a very good summary of how we got here. And we're going to talk a little bit more as we go in about some of the other factors that we're seeing, and kind of go through the water side real quick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to you all who have information, like Chris just mentioned, about agriculture or about, other aspects of our lives, fire and such, so that we can understand a little bit better about, again, that broader picture of what drought impacts are looking like and where we see this headed. So I'm going to go this forward there. So I'm going to talk a little about stream flow, and I always like to make sure that when we talk about drought, we're talking about different kinds of droughts that affect the state differently and affect people in the state differently. We have soil droughts, which we certainly just talked about in terms of the lack of rain and how deep that drought goes and the dryness goes within the soil. It affects fires, it affects growth of plants, all of those kinds of things. We have kind of a river drought, and this affects our surface waters. And you see, different effects going on in our rivers. Effects on recreation, effects on the ability to have water, to put out fire ponds and such, and then the effects on fishing and other wildlife which are dependent upon. And the third kind of drought that we have in the state is a groundwater drought. And so these things are obviously connected because they're all related to precipitation. But they happen at different scales and have different impacts on the communities that depend on it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that now, is there really are different ways to ponder this idea of drought and where it sort of sits within the landscape. So we're going to start out with stream flow. This is a curve which I think is extremely helpful to use, but it takes just a second to explain. And what you see are the various different colors of those lines are accumulations of different parts of the state, different regions. And so what our ACE data guy, Ken Everson, has done on these is basically taken the various different regions, added the various different USGS gauges together, especially those that are mostly unmanaged sites. That is, there's not a lot of upstream management of water that's changing those or making those fluctuate or moderating. And so what you're able to see here is you can see each one of these days along the bottom is really looking at comparison to average flows over time, or basically putting all of those flows on a scale of 0, never happened, to 100% happens all the time, to 50%, which is sort of a median condition. So if you're looking across this, what we see for pretty much most of the state, certainly in June and July, is that all of those curves are very low, like in the 20th percentile or so. And a lot of them dip down into the 10th or even lower. So these would be like the 5% lowest flows that we've ever seen for that particular day in the history. And so this really helps us to understand where do we sit, not just as a particular gauge in a particular place, but helps us really look across the state in the way that we think about regions. And so what you can see from this is that the southern Connecticut, which is the yellow line, has been pretty well juiced by the various storms that have come through recently. That's certainly helpful for that part of the state, especially what you're going to see when we start talking about some of the groundwater belts. But the rest of the state, you're seeing little blips here and there, but in general, it's been a downward trend in the state at that low spot. So this is just a statewide picture of what stream flows are looking like. And if you're really into the data, this sort of gives an even more interesting picture of it, because what you can see are each of these different parts of the state, and you see that the southern Connecticut Valley appears to be doing sort of pretty well. The coastal Piscataqua area is really rough. And in fact, if you put a median on there, it's down around 5%. Of historic flows. The Saco's pretty tough. Northwoods has been hanging in there right about 10%, and huge variation in the Merrimack Valley. And you see this, we were talking about this before the meeting, is you can see huge variations between sort of what's going on, say, in the rivers like around Concord. I was looking at the Warner, the Warner looks actually halfway decent, versus the Cochita, which is extraordinarily low, historically low right now. So this kind of helps to put that into perspective for us. I appreciate USGS. Thanks, Richard, for sending this over. This is really helpful to understand this difference between sort of what's managed flows and what's not managed flows. If you just went and looked at the gauges, aggregated all the gauges on the Connecticut River, you would get a picture like you see up to the one on your left there. That shows it pretty green. It looks like flows are doing pretty well. That's really mimic what that is showing really is that those flows are highly managed because the whole northern part of the Connecticut River is dammed. So it doesn't really indicate the actual flow conditions that we would see in that area. You start to take those out, those unmanaged sites out, and you get a much better picture which shows that most of the Connecticut is actually very dry. And when we talk about groundwater, you're going to see that particularly. We have a program called the In-Stream Flow Program, which we initiated a couple of decades ago, and there are currently 3 rivers that have protected in-stream flows that have been calculated and tracking on a daily basis. 2 of those, we actually have management plans for those watersheds. That's both the Lamprey and the South Keegan. The other river is Cold River, which we have protected in-stream flows in the process of writing management plans. And there are 2 other rivers that are currently going through this process, the Schwelet and the Warner River. So what you're seeing here, this is for the Lamprey River, and at certain flows, we have management plans, and they take in certain actions. Some of those actions include conservation, some of them are changing where your water supply actually comes from, and some of those are releases. We do these pulse releases from Pawtucket and Mendota that help to augment and sort of reset the ecology in those rivers, taking a very small amount of water out of those lakes, releasing it. It mimics a 2-day rainstorm that would normally provide that freshet, but we just haven't had this year for most of the rivers in the state. So you can see that right now we are very low below our protected in-stream flows, that river, the red and yellow lines. And so right now, in fact, there's a pulse release going on in the Lamprey, which will go on for the next 48 hours or so. The idea is to pull that up, again, close or hopefully exceed that protected flow. The Souhegan also is starting to look, it was looking okay for quite a while, recently took a dive, and so we're starting to see that those management plans are coming into effect on the Souhegan. And then finally, the Cold River, which has been much, much better, and has seen you see those storms that it's been highly responsive to this year. It's also starting to get into kind of lower flow conditions. So we are seeing this moving from south kind of up to north. So looking at our groundwater network, we have a fantastic groundwater network that's been built over time, and our geological survey, the Hampshire Geological Survey, manages this. They go out and check these check the water levels in these groundwater, and some of them are overburdened, some of them are down in the bedrock, and it gives us a really good picture of what's going on. And what you can see here is that all along the Connecticut River, we have very red dots. Those red dots mean they're very low. They're very low by historic terms, not just low for summer, no, for summer, it's sky, but they're low historically. And you can see that also in some of the seacoast region and a little bit in the middle of the country, a little bit of state, Hampton, Albany. The really dark red, the darkest of the red, or the brightest of the red, that would be the lowest flows, the lowest average flows measured for that particular month at those particular wells. So not only are we seeing very low conditions in some of these wells, which have data going back, a few decades, these are historically low conditions. So that's a concern for our drinking water resources, our groundwater resources. And the state is currently in the process of augmenting this network and also automating this network, which we're very excited about. Anything that I missed, Shane, or on this issue of groundwater? Good. And I'll ask for questions if there's any questions or things that came out from the chats. But I won't stop. I'll keep going. This is really, when you start parsing this out a little bit, what you see is that what I was kind of, this idea that we have different kinds of droughts that hit in different kinds of places for different reasons. So you see, I think what's really interesting is you look at like the Newport well, which is this one down here, And what you're really seeing from that Newport well is, really lack of snowpack. It's really been dry all the way through. Never really truly recovered from the droughts of 20 and 21. This is kind of an interesting, this is one aspect of drought, sort of groundwater drought, in which there are areas of the state that still really never recovered from the deep droughts that we have. Again, historically deep droughts, probably the deepest drought since the 1960s, that occurred in 20 and 21. And then you see sort of East Kingston, which was doing quite well, and that sort of shows what this idea of a rapid onset drought. And this came on as the conditions deteriorated, and I think Campton sort of sits in that as well. So you see this rapid deterioration this year based on several factors. Low snowfall last year, which affected some places. Antecedent conditions, that is, the conditions that were occurring prior to this year, and then those dry conditions that we've had now. Again, that influences the different conditions in the different places in the state. Also shows what a diverse state we have for such a small state. This is from our Dan Bureau. Thanks, Jim Gallagher, our state engineer is here. And so what you see is that Winnipesaukee is running, a few tenths below normal this time of year. Then you can see that what we see in the precipitation data, this is our precipitation. So you see these lows sort of accumulating over the course of July. And you can see here that where the pink is the inflow and discharge is the green line here, that you're seeing pretty consistently over the past month that our inflow is less than our discharge. And so again, this is why you start to see the lake starts to go down. There's not a whole lot we can do about that given the inflow conditions and the minimum flow requirements that are necessary. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just thought just speaking at illustration parents talking about that. The last 6 weeks we've had actually a long period of negative evaporative processes. So it's it's a complication based on lake flow and based on what we know is going on in the lake, but we get negative. See if that's coming into it.
Right, so you see anytime that we have the pink line is below the green line, there's more going out. Excellent. Any other questions on that? And our other lakes around the state are kind of in a similar condition, not really dropping tremendously, but we're starting to see some lower flows or lower levels. And then kind of, so what's going on in the state around this? We do track the different water sources, water supply systems that may be implementing restrictions. Those could be odd, even day restrictions or morning, night restrictions, or even outdoor watering bans. We track those, and so we've been tracking this all through the summer. At the beginning at the end of June, before things started really kind of unraveling from the drought perspective, there were about 50 systems or so, and they're affected about 60,000 people. And those are systems that have annual problems. So almost regardless of what the weather conditions are, there are a number of systems around the state that have challenges during the summer maintaining enough water. So they almost always have some sort of outdoor watering restrictions. But what you see is really the expansion by about 130,000 people over the course of July that are now under some sort of restriction, mostly in the southeastern part of the state. And you can see that affects 67 different systems around the state. In terms of private wells, and if there's any private well folks who are here, we are also starting to hear about problems. And our Greg Barker, who runs our water well program, he reported back to me that he inquired with a number of different water companies who provide wells. And there are a couple of things just to note from that. One is that they are hearing from people, probably on the order of, we're hearing maybe up to 100 or so dry wells around the state. We also have gotten direct notification of probably around 10 dry wells. Again, sort of, these are wells that this has occurred over, really just this summer. And we're also hearing just from the well drillers, given the rapid development that's going on, given the number of seasonal homes that are converting, all of the real estate development that's been going on, sort of the post-COVID boom here, the well drillers are very delayed. And so they have long wait times often. So this is a challenge related to our private well systems, is that people are going to be stressed. And one of the interesting things, again, is that the droughts hit different parts of the state at different times in different ways. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing some parts of the state, such as in that Connecticut River Valley, which haven't seen as deep a droughts as, say, the North Country saw over the last 2 years. And so you start to see these wells going dry in different places that we may have seen in 2016, or we may have seen in 20 or 21, which is also sort of interesting to the peculiarities of how precipitation falls across our state. So we have developed a program, which I'll talk about in 1 second, that it provides help for low-income folks who may be suffering from wells that have gone dry. That is our WAND program. And this came up over the last couple of years. We developed this in order to provide assistance to low-income families in the state who may be having problems with their well. Oftentimes these are dark wells or shallow wells, and so they need help with trying to get them deepened, or they, because of that deepening, they require different kinds of treatment. This is a program that will be available to do that, and there's going to be a press release that's going to go out today after this meeting, which begins to make sure people are aware of this. The well drillers have already been notified about this because they're usually the first point of contact with someone who's having, problems with their well. They say you don't know the value of the water till the well goes dry. So there's definitely some people learning that value. And so we're hoping that where we can help. And if you go to the website, that's the Groundwater Trust program, that they will have information, application materials, as well as the eligibility materials necessary. So we encourage people to please go and look if you are having problems with your well, if you know of people that are having problems. And if any of you have thoughts about how we should get this information out to other service providers who may come in contact with people who are having a problem with their well, we would love to know that. So please shoot us an email, shoot me an email, and we'll be able to use that information. So I do appreciate any help we can get on that particular issue. So I'm going to stop there for a second, actually, before we go on to sort of our key messaging. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up to anybody who has information that they'd like to share about what they're seeing and hearing around the state. And I'm going to do this sort of in a sector-by-sector manner. So I'd like to start out with our good friends in the agricultural community. Bob, I'm kind of staring at you. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
I can tell you.
Go ahead. There's a microphone right there for you, Rob.
Food growers actually grow their eating.
And it just remind us who you are.
Particularly those salt confidence into it. On the product of it. Fossil and probably increasing the prices of it just because of fertilizer issues. And all that inputs labor, fuel. That's the big, I guess, as far as mentioned earlier with overhang rocks. I'm not hearing as much from the northern part of the state. You can see an issue of really involves with heavy soils.
Right. Okay. Any other words on agriculture that you're seeing from your, I was going to say, can you bring the microphone up here? That'd be great. Thank you. I know this is a little bit of a pain in the microphones, but it helps the folks who are remote to be able to hear.
Hey, I'm Jeremy Lyle, UNH Cooperative Extension, I'm a field specialist. I reached out to several farmers late last week, just to kind of give the latest. Definitely want to reiterate what Rob said, but just add a little bit of detail from some growers. A couple of examples. One grower actually worked with NRCS last year to expand their farm. The hope was that would get them through September. So 2019 would go well during the last drought. It was an opportune time to do that. And then that pond is dry now. They're also hauling water. That's Hollis. Londonderry, one of the largest vegetable farms in New Hampshire. They're using hundreds of gallons of diesel per week to keep the pumps running. Diesel is not cheap right now. So they're going to likely suffer yield losses. The field crews are actually being released early on some of the hot days, which means loss in productivity for those farms. Londonderry, pumpkins could be a total loss of unirrigated fields, definite size difference in triple irrigated versus unirrigated apples. Size on Macintosh, for example, is much smaller. A lot of ponds are located at the bottom. This farm in particular is transferring well water to the pond to keep irrigation going. New Boston lost 2 plantings of carrots due to drought. Couldn't keep up with water demands. They're using lots of fuel. Bright spot is that insect pressure is low due to drought. We'll take it where we can get it. Concord crops we can readily water are okay. Unirrigated crops definitely impacted by poor growth, small size, low yield. These are direct quotes from farmers, by the way, I should say. Ponds are going down, brooks are very low, tree fruit with no irrigation is suffering from size. Bottom line is this will impact crop volumes and ultimately income. Apples in Lebanon, they're hauling water to spray from 5 miles away. In this case, it is called European red mite is excluded, partly due to dry conditions and heat. They can keep up with water demands. It sounds like Sullivan and Cheshire and Grafton basically are reporting just lower than average hay production. Second cut was appreciably down, lots of irrigation happening. That tends to be what we're seeing. Some of the heat impacts we are seeing, some flower abortion on some crops, especially those growing high tunnels, cucumber, tomato, when we get those temperatures up in the high 90s, we're not able to properly ventilate those tunnels. Sometimes, even if they are properly ventilated, those temperatures still going to get back. So that's important. Thank you.
Great. Big shout out to the Agricultural Experiment Station at UNH. Thank you very much. I know you folks keep your ear to the ground and are doing amazing work preparing new crops that can be planted by farmers in the future to deal with these very issues. So happy to get better associated with you all. It's pretty fantastic the work that goes on out there. Also one of the most gorgeous spots on earth. Quite well played. So any other words from the agricultural sector? Anybody want to know, or did we get anything in the chat from anyone in the agricultural sector? Great. Anyone from forests and lands?
Thank you. Steve Sherman, I'm the Chief of Forest Protection of the state. So as far as forest fires, what we've been seeing is things are definitely burning deep, conditions that we typically don't see even on a dry summer until late August, early September. We've been in those conditions right through July. The season's just, the fires we've been having, the remote fires, just burning early, 1-2 feet deep. As far as water goes, so far we haven't run into any fires at any locations that we weren't able to get a water source, or at least have one close enough that a tanker shuttle wasn't effective. But you know, as things continue, that's usually what we'll start to see is we won't be able to tap into streams to get hose letting in for an easier water source. But right now, that's what we're looking at. With the outlook going into September like this, that's not great. So we'll expect that the fires are just going to continue to be those 1 to 3 day fires to put out. And I'm just talking, you know, that could be a half acre or 1 acre fire and taking 3 days to extinguish.
So I have a question for you is, given the extraordinary fire conditions on our other coast, the left coast of the United States, what does that do to the number of firefighters that we might have available here? Are we ever sort of at a demand or supply issue with those folks who might be deployed outside to other parts of the country?
We do deploy some of our own firefighters throughout the country, especially as the national demand picks up and the national planning level is expected to bump up. The southern area has increased as well. We will start to hold our own folks back from going on assignments throughout the country based on our own fire nature here. And where it could affect us, is if we have a large incident, if we require assistance from outside of the area, it could affect the amount of firefighters available to come and assist. The Bemis fire we had in Crawford Notch in May, it was 106 acres, and we had firefighters from West Virginia out here. So it could start to impact that.
Right. I'm going to have to come back in just a little bit and talk to messaging that we should be getting out to people about forest fire. But let's continue with the impacts a little bit, and then I'd like to come back around and talk about that here in a little bit. Other forest impacts that people want to share from their perspectives. Go ahead.
I'm stating you, I'm with the White Mountain National Forest, and I think on the fire-related pieces side, obviously, also seeing increased stress in tree species, increase in insects and disease, and especially those that can be affected. And especially focusing on species like spongy moths that are often controlled by a fungus. When it's sink, really dry, less fungus, less control therefore. So some of our areas, especially if you're showing Saco, are getting sort of double whammy of both impact from the spongy moth is hitting, so we're getting less tree foliage, which is then allowing the drying to hit more, sun and heat to hit the ground more, which is then drying out the plants in the understory, increasing the fuel, things like that. So it just sort of continues to build and increase. And one of our impacts there is looking for rare plants, which is a lot of that area. And so it needs some canopy cover over it. It's often in these areas that are currently affected by the spongy moth. So those species are getting more stressed. We're also finding when it comes to controlling our invasive plants that in periods of drought, the herbicides that we may use are less effective because plants aren't, they're shutting down due to that drought. Just some sort of long-term effects that we may control themselves.
I could ask just one quick question for you. Sorry. Do you feel like the forest, I mean, just given the dry conditions that we experienced in 20 and 21, especially the northern part of the forest, do you feel like you kind of got full recovery after that with the rains in the last summer, fall? or do you still see some of the lingering effects?
Well, you still see some lingering effects just because trees and other species are in different stages of development. Taking nutrients and everything else when those rains come later in the year. So there are continued effects. How much, how severe will depend on whether we start getting water before they start shutting down water. So that's on effect. It remains to be seen. Most species can recover for a year or two before we start having 3 or 4.
Great, thank you. And we'll come back to you in a second again and talk a little about what advice you would give to people visiting the White Mountain Forest. Other forestry impacts that we want to talk about. And I don't know if we had anybody from Fish and Game to talk about sort of fish impacts. I know the director is planning to be here, but he said he's going to be late. So we'll maybe come back around to him unless anybody on the chat or anyone else has any thoughts on fisheries. Okay, we'll move along. I have just one update, and then we'll move to sort of other. If there's anyone else who'd like to talk about impacts that you're seeing from your sector that you're interested in, we did get an email from Jessica Keeler from Ski New Hampshire. And right now, they're just keeping an eye on the drought situation. And so far, none of the skiers are expressing concerns. So, they're really waiting to see what happens for the snowmaking season. They're really anxious to make sure that we get enough rain in the fall that there won't be any shortage or restrictions during the winter for snowmaking. So that's the concern. And in fact, over the last couple of years, they know one resort who had to buy water from a local precinct when their own sources got so low. So, I think that's from the Ski New Hampshire perspective, we're really hoping that we start to have that recovery in the fall that we certainly saw last year, which was quite beneficial. Plenty of water from the ski areas last year that did great. Any other impacts or kinds of, drought-related items that you all would like to bring to our attention? Anything else you see in the data or information you have? Okay, great. Oh, wait, Brian.
Data, so as you know, I'm not data. Blue face. Brian Gatz, City of Portsmouth. So, one thing that, I hate having these meetings every year, but it seems to be kind of more the norm. So our numbers, I know the Seacoast tends to show up in every drought to be the highest level of drought. So what we've noticed and what we're tracking is out of the last 10 years, we've been below normal precipitation. And the years that we just got enough precipitation, they were just normal. So I think to some degree we're a little bit swayed by the fact that the early 2000s, we had Mother's Day storm, we had all this wet weather, sort of skewed us into the thoughts of how much water we had and flooding and things like that. That hasn't been the case the last 10 years, but I don't think we're as bad as we were in 2020, and then we look at the calendar, we're only a month away from Labor Day, so chances are we'll make it through, but it is the long term, it's the deficit that we continue to experience over and over, and maybe we'll get a storm, maybe we'll get a hurricane, which we really don't want to replenish the water, but if we get it, take it, because to some degree, what we need to recover from the deficit. So I know the systems around us, our water systems, we only have voluntary restrictions through management. We've been pretty good. Our Valley Reservoir is down a foot, but not as low as it was in 2016 or 2020. So again, we've got markers to be able to compare historic droughts. 2016 was really, really dry. 2020, a longer period of dry, but not quite as dry. So I guess we're kind of third in line at the moment, but it's all that happens in the future. So I think some of the other systems around us have gone uneven, and the Right Water District has done that, Exeter has done that. The systems that maybe are more impacted by irrigation, and I think anybody in the room that thinks uneven works, it really doesn't. People here, they can still irrigate, so they still irrigate. So if we get to that point where we really need to do restrictions, you elevate uneven to, all out restrictions for long water and pretty quick.
So Brian, I think on the spot for just a second. Can you talk a little about what enforcement has done to improve its drought resiliency over the last, few droughts?
Well, we have both surface water and groundwater. So when we have the surface water, we shut our wells down or we reduce the amount of withdrawal. So we're able to turn the wells, which is essentially water and storage, cut back on the surface water. So that has helped us to some degree. We've optimized some of our sources. We, fortunately, through treatment of PFAS at the moment, we have a well online at Pease that we haven't had online for the last 7 years, the Hazel Law. So that's quite helpful to have that source back online. And we fixed leaks in the system. We probably upwards of maybe 500,000 gallons of water we used to pump into the pipes that would leak out. So all those things added up, and we messaged our customers. We've got a toilet and washing machine rebate program. In the last 7 years, we've issued 1,200 rebates, so we do see a reduction there on day-to-day consumption on those users. Not huge, but it a little bit adds up. It's a compendium of things, but it takes a lot of effort, time, and it would be nice to get a break. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. Great, thanks. Any other water suppliers? I won't put you guys on the spot, but I know that things seem to be okay here in the central part of the state. That supplies are hanging in there, Manchester, Concord. So unless you want to say something, they're good. Okay. Joe. So
One reminder.
Yeah, go ahead. Just wait a second for the microphone.
Reminder for those who know, and in case folks don't know, the drought also impacts water quality. And in particular for private wells, recently we have evidence that drought conditions lead to potentially higher concentrations of arsenic in urine, things like that, pumping wells. Just like deeper wells on average have higher concentrations of those as drought ensues and water table elevations go down, concentrations can increase. So just something to watch for if you're in the area that's prone to that.
And did you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Joe Mayotte with the U.S. Geological Survey in New Hampshire.
Thanks, Joe. Really good points. I think, we're going to get around to some messaging, but, maybe that's one of the messages that we ought to be portraying to folks is that, if your well is getting very low, then perhaps you ought to think about doing another water quality test, which you can do right here in our state. Director Mason, do you have anything to add about fish or other critters that we ought to know about?
Scott Mason, Executive Director in the Hampshire Fishing Game. We've had 2 fish kills this year, which is not overwhelmingly high for us. Probably go through warm water conditions. But as of now, as I was talking with my biologist on Friday, the drought kind of started a little later in the year, so we missed the reproductive cycle of a lot of our species. And then as long as the drought gets done and we have water back in to help some of our other species hibernate this winter, it shouldn't have a huge impact on wildlife, per se. Should that change when we go into, the continuing, we've seen the water levels drop a lot in a fairly short period of time. Certain areas of the state, if that continues, we don't have water levels back in. That may have some detrimental impacts on some of our turtle species and reptile species and need water coverage.
So right now, the fish and other aquatic wildlife are sort of hunkered down in the beach spots. Is that the?
Exactly. Yeah, there may be some impacts, but timing is everything for us and for us and species that we're interested in. Timing of this drought has been good so far. Continues to work with us or work against us.
And I'm just going to trouble you one more second, that I know that you also are a farmer up in the northern part of the state. Do you have anything to relate from you or your neighbors up on the Upper Connecticut?
Yeah, for those of you that don't know my background, my wife and I actually married into my wife taught me how to look out and drive a tractor, so it's certainly been a wonderful marriage for over 30 years now. But anyway, my wife and I ran a commercial dairy farm until a little over a year ago. We sold out the camels, and we're still currently running beef, sheep, vegetables, and forage crops. As I was saying to Ted, when we talked on the phone the other day, for multiple reasons, I no longer farm today the way I did 30 years ago when we bought the farm up north. We modified a lot of our processes, and a lot of that, whether we do it at the time or not, a lot of it actually had to do a lot with changing of the climate and how that impacts things on the farm. I won't go into the details, but when I was in college, we were taught to mow in the afternoon or the evening. That's when grasses have the highest content of carbohydrates, and that's what you're trying to capture when you make hay or make silage. But since then, in order to, when you get rain, some of you know anything about hay, you'll understand that rain is not, we want rain except from the time we cut to the time we bale. That's very bad. Reduce our exposure, our weather risks. We've all changed the way we mow. We actually now get up by, I'll get up and start mowing at 3 o'clock in the morning, especially for silage. Usually silage is a 2-day process. You mow in the afternoon and you chop the following day. Now we're mowing in the morning and we're all done with it evening when we're chopping silage. When we move into dry hay, we still get up and do an early morning mowing, but it's still taking probably. I can get a little earlier jump on it on the third day, but I'm not able to usually get it 2 days unless I'm really cutting stuff. We've also mitigated how we change our tillage practices. When I first started, I was a conventional tiller, mow bottom plow and harrows, and those, I haven't touched the mow bottoms. I can't remember the last time I used it. I could sit up on my neighbor's place now. I haven't been on my farm for 10 years. We've switched over to no-till, and the beauty of no-till, first of all, saves fuel. If anybody knows the price of fuel, that's a good thing. The other thing that we've done is by not disturbing the soil, we're able to get on in springtime when we do have some rain. We can get on the soil a little quicker and onto the land a little quicker if we haven't tilled it. And the other thing is that in a dry year, we don't lose as much soil moisture to evaporation. So it actually it helps us in both wet and dry years. So there's been a lot of changes, and I think that just about any farmer we talk to will tell you they're changing what they're doing today. And quite often a lot of it has to do with climate changes, as well as the costs associated with agriculture. Now, it gets a little tougher, difficult. A lot of your farms down here aren't more on vegetable fruit side of stuff, and wouldn't be really qualified to talk about any of the changes that those folks are doing. I'm sure they too have gone through it. I know irrigation practices changed over the years, et cetera, et cetera.
Great, thank you so much. I do appreciate that recommendation from all those perspectives. And so, unless there's any other folks that want to talk about potential impacts or have questions for those people who've already spoken, I'll pause there. Yeah, go ahead, Stacey.
The one piece I didn't get, not like how you were gonna divide up your sectors with our rec piece, recreation, and so for us, you know, uses it quite high at the beginning of the pandemic, which is probably not a surprise, but still healthy high. And, you know, needless to say, lack of rain and really great weather, and especially the warmth pushes people up to us if no place else. But what we're also discovering is that, well, we all know that a lot of rain is bad for the trails. It's dry, it's not so good. You get that dry crumbling. There's a certain amount of moisture you need to hold rocks and dirt in place when you've got a lot of feet trampling along them and moving them. And so we actually have a number of our trails that are just, they're getting so that I can only describe it like that dry crumbly, where there's a lot of use. And then when we get these 2 inch, you know, 2 inches of rain in the dump, that is what we seem to be getting, you know, that's when that stuff can actually move. So it's interesting to see that. I'm used to thinking only of intense rain being as it's taking over your direction.
Great. Why don't we like? I'm going to go ahead and change gears, and we're going to talk a little about messaging. So, for folks that are visiting the White Mountain National Forest, you've identified a couple of different impacts that you're seeing, the impacts of insects, the impacts of dry conditions, and potentially on fire, which we heard about, so we'll go to that in a little bit, but also on trails. So what's your advice? What messages would you like to get out to folks who are visiting the White Mountain National Forest during this period of time?
So many messages that particularly relate to the drought, the folks focusing on those, you know, obviously, I'm sure Steve would agree. Out there fire and make sure that and that, you know, often people think it is, and they don't figure out. On the Monday morning, often the case. And then the other part, I guess, is just because rivers and streams are low right now, and you can cross them, doesn't mean that in future years that will be the case, or even that when you're on your way back out, that it might be the case. Get a heavy rainstorm between the time that you cross the stream, going in on your hike, and when you're ready to come back out, be aware that that one is perfectly safe crossing. So to where your surroundings, make a head that way. So we want everybody to be able to come back out.
That's terrific. I appreciate that. Certainly the flashiness of the mountains in New Hampshire in terms of the precipitation and water levels is pretty intense because there ain't a whole lot of soil up there. Sits on top of the rocks. So that water got to go someplace pretty quick. So we're going to work backwards then. So we're talking about fire, if you don't mind. Go ahead and talk. What's your message to get out to the good people in New Hampshire and our visitors about fire?
Well, we want to make sure that everybody's getting a fire permit. That's one way that we can prevent issues from occurring, is allowing fire departments the ability to issue fire permits. So if they have certain areas that are experiencing more impacts from the drought or recreational activity, they can determine whether it's safe for people to burn in those areas. So we want people and encourage people to get the required fire permits. And then just to echo what's been said is putting fires out. We've had campfires in remote areas, even last week, which are just burning real deep because people aren't putting them out. So putting water on it, stirring it out, and then peeling to make sure it's out is key.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate it. And again, we'll talk a little bit, we already heard about some of the resilience activities that are going on in our water supplies and also within our farms. Is there any other messaging, say from UNH Agriculture Experiment Station that is going out to to the folks who you serve? What messaging are you getting out to the agricultural community?
Yeah, so the main thing, and Rob did touch on it, but I want to make sure I did as well, it's just that, our farms have already laid out, a lot of expenditures, they've spent a lot of money up to this point in the season to grow the crop. It's really important in years like this that we get out to the farm stands, that we support the local farms. Maybe it's down more than ever, so any effort that you can make, if it's once to see if we can make it to your local farm stand, that's great. If it's more than that, even better, but they certainly need our support during this time, so that's important to get out. And then on the issue of just conservation of the water that we get out, especially irrigation water, we're talking about changing trends. New Hampshire farmers are starting to utilize things like soil moisture sensors quite a bit more to make their irrigation decisions, and so that allows them to kind of place a sensor in the ground, get a reading from that. It's likely multiple sensors across the field, and so then they've got a number on that soil moisture, and it kind of once they start to learn that soil based on their soil type, that can allow them to trigger the irrigation response, or potentially say, I don't need to irrigate today, I can go another day. So that goes a long way towards making it drop as far as possibly can. We're seeing that kind of automation as well in certain cases, so I think the future is bright as far as water conservation and agriculture, and a lot of New Hampshire farms are already taking on themselves and implementing those practices.
And is there technical assistance through the cooperative extension programs on that?
There is, and we have a fact sheet online on utilizing soil moisture sensors on our website, the conservation districts and NRCS have also been big proponents of that. And when they're designing irrigation plants, oftentimes they're required soil moisture monitoring equipment to be installed with those irrigation systems.
Great, excellent. So in terms of other messaging, I'm going to quickly cover kind of what the messaging is coming out of our department, and this mirrors some of what we started with Mary Stamp Home, is that we're in a drought. It is, given the forecast ahead of us, it is likely to intensify, moving from south to north. We have particular concerns about groundwater levels in the Connecticut River Valley. And so we're making sure that people are aware that those groundwater concerns are out there. We would expect some intensification of the drought in that area, and again, depending on what happens with rainfall. We don't expect a major improvement. Obviously, stream flows are highly reactive to precipitation, but soil moisture conditions, how deep the water goes within the soil, and actually recharging groundwater takes a much longer time and much more sustained water precipitation. So we don't really expect to see that until fall. So our key messaging is that for water suppliers, if you're beginning to see problems, please start to communicate with your users that they need to start doing conservation, whether that's mandatory or voluntary conservation, how you choose to do that. We will be, DES, ramping up our messaging on that issue as well, particularly in those places which are in severe, or hopefully we don't get into other categories of the drought, but if we do, again, we'll be intensifying our messaging. And then this message of conservation. And then I like the other things we've heard today. Be careful with fire, put your fire out. I remember when I was in Boy Scouts, somebody had to go fishing around with their hand in the bottom of that fire pit. It was always a little shock when you got one of them coals. But it's worth it. It's worth doing. That's really important. And be careful when you're out and about, hot tailpipes on ATVs, other things like that, just given the current conditions can go pretty quickly. Other messaging that we should be getting out to folks through the media sources or through our drought outlook that you all would like to see. Anything else? Terrific. Anything that showed up on the chats? Great. Bring to the microphone. That's Jana Ford in our public information programs.
Donald Kingston from NRCS said that NRCS will have a climate smart funding pool this year to help farmers install practices that deal with drought and extreme rainfall events. There are several practices with crops, reduce tilling, mulch, grazing, etc.
Can you say the name of that program again, Jim?
NRCS.
I know, but what's the name of the program that they said they're starting
Oh,
off?
sorry. Climate smart funding.
Great. Excellent.
And then message from Jeffrey Holmes with USDA. Another 4 weeks of B2 in Cheshire, Pittsburgh, or Rockingham counties. With the 8 total weeks will trigger separate federal disaster declaration requests for drought in the town. Also, reported crop, I believe, losses, at least 30% for any given crop owned by will lead to disaster declaration costs. And then I had another question, I'm not sure. Oh, somebody did get a question.
That's a very good point about the disaster declarations. That's really key for federal funding. So we'll be keeping track. I have a feeling we're going to start keeping track of that here as well, so that we can make sure that we're letting people know where we're at with that. So I appreciate USDA for chiming in on that. Chris?
Yeah, I just had a closing statement.
Yeah, just wait a second. I'll get a microphone over to you. You want to just introduce yourself, Chris?
Sure. Chris Albert, CSA Environmental Consultants. I'm a water system designer, septic designer, scientist. So I kind of feel in a one water approach. We're in a drought today, but I think we really need to look at climate resiliency and really looking at flood control structures along the seacoast. And we've got to get ready for these large rain events. We need to take a water harvest approach of storing that water. Look at what Durham did at Spruce Creek as far as pumping water back into the reserves. We need to learn to start harvesting our water. These ups and downs are not going to change the seacoast. So hopefully the commissioner, you guys can look at different ideas on how we can take those major 2-inch rain events and try to hold that water back for that dry condition coming up. Thank you.
Great. I think, Chris makes a good point that we should try to talk about when we're talking about our climate is that we also don't have much storage. So, we're not like California with giant reservoirs. Although their reservoirs are pretty empty right now too. So, maybe I don't know, whatever. So, where we are in this is any rest of recommendations and next steps. We heard about some good messaging. We heard about some assistance programs. Any other assistance programs that people know about that we should be aware of or make people aware of? Great. If people have thoughts like that, please email them over so that we can try to keep track of some of that. Make sure that people are aware where there are programs that can be helpful for that. And where I'm going to end this is that what I intend to do is after this meeting is we'll send out, we'll be developing a little bit of a summary of this meeting. We'll have it posted on in our drought website. This will help to inform our drought updates. That's what you get from Stacy. And if those of you are on that list, and if you're not on the list, shoot us an email and tell you how to get on the list for the drought updates. Or you can always just go to our webpage and Google drought. So that'll get you there. And then, I think if we continue where we are like this for much into the fall, what I will probably do is gather this group again, sometime maybe probably like towards the end of September, if things are still looking rough, so that we can get people back together again and see what sort of messaging or preparation we should be making in thinking about what happens over the course of the winter and into the next year, if this turns out to be a multi-year event. So that would be my intention. Any other thoughts from anyone here assembled who would like to make any recommendations about future opportunities or future things that we should be doing to make sure that we're all coordinated as a state? Okay, you're shy. You can go ahead and email me later, ted.deers, D-I-E-R-S, @dps.nh.gov. And please, if you have any thoughts or other things that we should be talking about, please let me know, and we'll do that in the future. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Feel free to stay and convince as you like, and we'll be around here for a little bit if people want to talk or want to talk to you specifically about issues that you have. And otherwise, thank you for being here, and thanks for the input that we got here today. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And don't forget to drop your pretty necklaces at the front desk. Oh, at the back door, sorry.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.